Hello there. First things first, this is part 4 of a 5-part series, so go look the 3 videos before going forward with this video. Second, the making of this video was a huge undertaking for me since I ended up losing the first 2/5 of it first on Adobe Rush, and I was then forced to recreate all that footage on DaVinci Resolve. Because of that, I already ask at this point for you to acknowledge the effort I pulled in the making of this video by liking and commenting on it. Thirdly, the unbiased in the title refers to the fact I am not picking a side on deciding on how I see this film for the better or worse. Sure, sharing my opinions have some biases, but the unbiased part comes from the fact that I am acknowledging both the good and the bad in an attempt to balance the film's quality. And now let's get started on the plot summary of Hour 3 of Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. Diana is shown packing her things in her hotel room, ready to leave the city. She logs onto her laptop, probably to buy plane tickets, when she gets an email from Bruce Wayne about the photograph which she told Luthor had taken from her. Bruce, having cracked the data encryption in the last part, has found her photograph from World War I. Diana makes a passively silent facepalm seeing it before noticing the other email attachment on her photo is from, and opens the other folders containing the files on Aquaman, Flash, and Cyborg, who along with Diana were likely the other candidates that Luthor had planned to manipulate into fighting Superman before settling on Batman. Also, reminder from the last video, Wonder Woman's logo dates back a century. Atlantis is an ancient civilization, and the Flash already has a lightning bolt on his costume, meaning that these logos are copied, not designed. The only one that might be designed is Cyborg's logo. I also want to address my previous grievance from the last video how the casting of Aquaman, Cyborg, and the Flash were announced way too early. Wonder Woman's casting I could understand, as her movie was in the middle of filming before this movie was released into theaters. But for the other Justice League members, revealing their actors and showing them in character here in this movie would have been better than having a random name attached to a casting announcement. I know that Jason Momoa did his best to deny being Aquaman, but this scene could have carried so much more meaning if we didn't know these actors and characters were going to be in the movie. Diana closes her laptop, which transitions us to the front of the abandoned GCPD building, where the battle-armored Batman is waiting for Superman, and then it simultaneously jumps to Lois asking for the Daily Planet chopper to fly her to Gotham. Okay, I have given this movie enough slack about these jumping back and forth cuts. Now this is starting to get annoying. We are shown Batman standing ready, so we get ready, and then we are thrown to a completely separate location. I have given this editing method some slack because these scenes are suggested to take place at the same time in real time of the movie itself. So, this scene with Lois is supposed to happen during the time before Superman has arrived to see Batman. You know what would have made this less annoying? Making these happening at the same time scenes be shown simultaneously like it was done in 24. It could have given this comic book based movie a comic book like feeling by showing the paralleling scenes next to each other like if they were comic book panels. Anyway, Lois gets berated by Perry, who tells her they don't have the budget to keep a chopper and to go to the scout ship absorbing energy to do a story about that, because Superman might be there. Instead of telling her boss that Superman is in Gotham and that being her reason to get there, Lois just says that she doesn't need the chopper ride for a story, and in 5 seconds, Perry orders his staff to call Lois a helicopter ride across the bay where the bat signal is shining from. We now reach the point of the movie where Batman and Superman are about to face off, and due to the fact that this is not going to be a battle of ideas, philosophies, or whatever people convince themselves over it would have been, This movie should have been called Man of Steel 2 or Man of Steel with a subtitle instead of Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. The fact that Zack Snyder elected there to be a V instead of VS in the title should have made it clear, and it was probably the Warner Bros. Executives like Kevin Tsujihara who made Batman share the title name and come before Superman in it. Thunder roars as the two are now coming face to face, with Batman defiantly welcoming the Superman to his home turf, and Clark directly getting to the point in trying to ask his help.
Bruce, please, I was wrong. You have to listen to me. Lex wants us.
But because Batman came here to fight Superman, he has set up traps that cut Clark off in the middle of a sentence. Clark disables the first trap and tries to carry on where he was cut off.
You don't understand. There's no time. I understand.
But because Batman refuses to listen, Clark is forced to use minimal amount of force to show him that this would not even be a fight for him. After throwing Batman maybe 100 meters away from his face, Clark could have used the time it took to walk to Batman again to try explain why he is here. But another trap stops him before he can even open his mouth again. He manages to destroy the traps and get back to Batman before the Dark Knight has gotten back on his feet. And now Clark is using the advice he got from Santos' widow.
I like that word don't stop him. You know what stops him? A fist.
Clark smacks Batman around and then lifts him up into the air before throwing him at the bat signal, and then he tries to talk to Batman again.
Stay down! If I wanted it, you'd be dead already.
And at this point where Batman starts to fight back, I feel like it's time to start talking about what I referenced to in my Superman 1978 and Man of Steel comparative review about how Superman's powers can be seen like applications eating away the battery life of a smartphone. And right now, Clark is not connected into a charger. After saving Lois, confronting Luthor, and spending 20 minutes probably trying to find his mother with the super hearing, Clark's powers should be somewhere in the 75 or 80% when he comes to Batman. As this fight scene is happening on a dark and rainy night without any sunlight charging Superman's powers, every action he takes is going to cost him a certain amount of solar energy. Destroying these sonic traps, -1 or 2%. Throwing Batman away by 100 meters, probably nothing. Ascending up into the air and destroying these turrets with his heat vision, -3 or 5%. Throwing Batman, lifting him up, and throwing him into the bat signal, minus another 3 or 5%. Then Batman throws a lead-lined smoke bomb to stealthily switch positions, and he fires a kryptonite gas grenade, which begins to eradicate Clark's cells and bring down his strength. The effects of the kryptonite gas affect Clark long enough for Batman to block his weakened attacks and hit Superman with punches that make him stay down for a few seconds. Ultimately, the effects wear off enough for Clark to parry this kick and throw Batman through a wall. And eventually Batman's punches stop having any effect. But because of the kryptonite, Clark's solar energy levels should have gone down to less than 50% by now. That is still stronger than Batman on his best days. At this point, where Clark throws Batman across the room, he could try to talk to Batman again about asking for his help. I don't know why he would rather run at Batman and get another blast of kryptonite gas on his face instead. Also, he lands a punch on Batman's face that breaks a hole into his mask. Was this what he was going to do, or was it reactionary? Anyway, previous charge through the door, -5% from that point. Throwing Batman across the room, -3%. This charge and kryptonite to the face, Clark's solar energies should be down in their 20s now. And then Batman hits Clark with this sink while the kryptonite is still visibly doing its initial damage to him, where I think Clark's power levels go down to 15%. Which is that point where your phone usually starts to beg you to put it on a charger again. Which won't be happening until Clark exposes him to the sunlight again. Oh! And after that fall, Clark's powers must be down under 10%. Notice here when Batman speaks that his voice modulator is malfunctioning and his voice is distorted, going between his Batman voice and his Bruce Wayne voice.
I bet your parents taught you to mean something. That you're here for a reason. My parents taught me a different lesson. Dying in the gutter. For no reason at all.
And after this swinging around, Clark should be under 5% in his powers.
They taught me the world only makes sense if you force it to.
Be ready for the next Sawardo coming up pretty soon. After Batman picks up his kryptonite spear, as Lois's helicopter is shown to arrive and she hurries out of her ride, Batman steps over Clark while telling him he was never a god or a man. And just before the spear comes down, I try to edit the following dialogue so that I won't get a major copyright strike. Superman says,
You're letting him kill Martha!
Batman responds confused,
What does that mean? Why did you say that name? Find him!
Superman says in his last breath.
Save Martha! Stop
Notice how I kept referring to the character as Clark throughout this fight scene, and only here at the end changed it to calling him Superman. That is because during this scene, Clark has been trying and failing to ask Batman to help him rescue his mother, and at what he believes to be his final moments, he starts acting like Superman by telling Batman that he is letting Luthor kill a hostage used to blackmail him. When you change the pronouns into names and the name into another substantive, you are letting him kill Martha turns into Batman is letting Luthor and or Knyzev kill the hostage. Superman originally came to see Batman to ask for his help because he didn't have it in himself to kill again after General Zod, and even here at his last moments, he tries to ask for Batman's help by stating his case in 9 words, out of which the detractors of this film decided to acknowledge just Superman's last words, aka save and Martha. In his confusion, Bruce's mind is taken to his earlier nightmare from the Wayne family crypt and from the opening of the movie, which then causes him to start screaming,
Why did you say that name?
because his mother was also named Martha, and his confusion about the two is not helping the situation. Also, having Clark say, help me save my mom, wouldn't have worked any better, as Batman saw him as an inhumane alien, so why would he have cared about some alien broodmother? The only good thing that comes out of Batman's confusion is that he keeps screaming
Why did you say that name?
long enough for Lois to get to them and tell him who Martha is.
Why did you say that name?
It's his mother's name.
And now it's time to go over that earlier nightmare from the part 2 of the review and how it showcased Bruce's mental state. Jotaro? So, in his first nightmare, Bruce was visiting his mother's grave in the Wayne family crypt. Inside the crypt, Bruce saw a glass window art of an angel wearing a blue robe and a red cloak, kind of like Superman. My interpretation of this part is that in his subconsciousness, Bruce does recognize Superman to be a heroic entity trying to use his powers to help people, but in his waking self-awareness he has not realized this yet. Then there is the blood leaking out of Martha Wayne's grave into Bruce's hands, followed by a monstrous bat creature that attacks Bruce. Anyone who knows anything about Batman should know that the very reason he exists is because Bruce watched his parents get shot in front of him as a child. In this continuity, as a 9-year-old. The memory of his parents is what pushes Bruce forward in being Batman, and as I brought up in that Frank Miller quote from my Child of Dreams Volume 2 review, for those of you who haven't watched that video, the quote goes like this. He is clearly a man with a mission, but it's not one of vengeance. Bruce is not after a personal revenge. He is much bigger than that. He is much more noble than that. He wants the world to be a better place, where a young Bruce Wayne would not be a victim. In a way, He is out to make himself unnecessary. Batman is a hero who wishes he didn't have to exist. This monstrous bat creature bursting out of his mother's tomb and attacking him is the representation of the bat corrupting his memory of his parents and consuming Bruce as the man. Also before that, Bruce is shown literally with blood in his hands. And this is why when hearing Superman accuse him of letting him kill Martha, Bruce's mind is snapped into reality by reminding him of his parents, and when Lois then tells him that the Martha whose death he is allowing is Clark's mother, that is where Bruce realizes that he is about to do to Superman what Joe did to him, that he has almost become his parents' killer. Also, even if Ma Kent's name wasn't Martha, Batman would still have paused in the confusion of being accused of killing someone who was not Superman. Finally, to use a comic book reference, this is why I listed Jim Starlin and Marv Wolfman's written version of the mainstream DC Universe Batman from the 80s to have been also influencing Ben Affleck's Batman. Starlin is better known during his run to have written the Death in the Family story arc, which had the Joker kill Jason Todd's Robin, but also for having created Anatoly Knyzev's comic book counterpart in KG Beast. Before the Death in the Family, KG Beast debuted in the story arc 10 Nights of the Beast, which concluded by having Batman leaving KG Beast locked underground to starve to death, essentially killing him indirectly. Starlin having written something that no one liked, Wolfman's first acts were to address and retcon that Batman had informed the GCPD of KGB's location hours later, which shows that he wasn't going to kill him in the end, but spent hours considering it. Nightwing is shown telling him this in Wolfman's first story arc, Year 3, which was also a retelling of how Dick Grayson became the first Robin. And when Wolfman introduced the third Robin, aka Tim Drake, who in his introduction justified his application to the position as Batman needs a Robin to keep himself from what he had become during Starlin's run, during which Jason Todd's Robin died. And Ben Affleck's Batman has been without a Robin long enough to end up in this situation where the role of Tim Drake in saving Batman from himself is given to Superman instead. I am also aware that the Robin costume from Part 2 used to belong to Dick Grayson, as Zack Snyder has confirmed. I am not happy about this, but I can understand why the change was done. I'll explain myself in Part 5. But in short, because Batman is a hero who wishes he never had to exist, according to the 1980s Frank Miller, the realization of having almost done to Superman what was done to him, he rejects what he has almost become and throws the kryptonite spear, representing Joeshil's gun, away. And so emulating Wolfman's run after everything Starlin did, Superman saves Batman from himself and what he almost became. The aftermath of their fight, with Batman forfeiting and Superman winning, is jumped over by showing the news team outside of the Kryptonian scout ship as it's pulsing with energy, and that Ma Kent still has 10 minutes before Knyzev is ordered to kill her. As Batman has now been filled in on how he has been used, the situation with Ma Kent, and the scout ship situation, he tells Clark to go to the ship and promises clearly as Bruce Wayne that he won't let the mother and son be separated like he was. Superman flies up, most likely to recharge his powers in sunlight, and Batman removes his armor before entering the Batplane, where Alfred informs that he had listened in and traced Knyzev's phone, which they bluejacked earlier in the movie, to a warehouse near the port.
I don't deserve you, Alfred. No, sir, you don't.
You are goddamn right, Alfred. And on an unrelated note, get King and Dan the deal for doing this! As Lois watches the Batplane fly away, she picks up the kryptonite spear Batman threw away and is later shown taking it to a temporary hiding place. For this next part, I don't like the fact that Knyzev is shown getting aware of the Batplane's approach, because it makes it seem like Batman has not made his aerial vehicle stealthy and left it too loud to be heard from a distance. After dispatching the anti-air defenders outside of Knizev's hideout, the strafing fire left these gunners 8 seconds to get out of the line of fire. Alfred takes over the controls and leaves Batman to enter the building on the floor below the Russian mercs. This is then followed by what everyone who saw this movie have unanimously agreed to be one of the best scenes in the entire film, as Batman enters the fight through the floor first and then neutralizes the mercs' weapons, with the following spectacle being comparable to the fight sequences in the Arkham video game series. I am not, however, going to go through everything that happens in it. This review is already very long, so I'm just going to focus on the only 4 casualties that were confirmed by this YouTuber claiming to be a medical professional. Hey look, it's that guy who was in the car flattened by the other car in the Batmobile chase scene. Dr. Hope said that he and this other guy died after he dropped his own grenade and dove on it.
He'd go straight to the mortuary.
He also said that this guy should be in a critical condition after being hit with a crate.
The head, you'd probably get what we call a coup and contra coup brain contusion.
Not dead. I am not, however, going to take all of Dr. Hope's words for granted, as he went to ignore Batman being shot behind his head and the possible migraine that he should have from the loud noises echoing inside his cowl, and the possibility that Batman might have transmitted diseases from returning this knife back to its owner the same way it was given to him. That's neglect and a bad joke. Then there is this unnecessary gut punch to the knife guy. See, according to Damon Carroll, the film's fight choreographer, Batman's movement, actions, and methods are based and justified due to the fact that he has a time limit before Ma Kent is killed. So why is he wasting time on a merc who is already down? Hey look, it's the other guy who was in the flattened car in the Batmobile chase scene, here to help recreate this hostage rescue scene from The Dark Knight Returns.
Drop it. I said drop it! I'll kill her! Believe me, I'll do it! I believe you.
Except instead of shooting fatally above shoulders like he did with this mutant punk, I mean look, the bullet hole is up there. Frank Miller had Batman kill this punk. Batman uses the guy's gun to defuse the fuel tank of Knizev's flamethrower, which he then still decides to use and blow himself up. And here are the other 2 casualties confirmed by Dr. Hope.
And 4 dead at the scene. So there you have it.
The guy who survived the Batmobile chase scene, and Anatoly Knizev, whose usage in this movie earned Jim Starlin more royalties than his other created characters in those Disney movies that made more money. Batman has managed to rescue Ma Kent and explains himself to her the quickest and easiest way he can.
It's okay. I'm a friend of your son's.
I figured. The cape?
Well, they are not exactly friends yet, but they are not enemies either. I let this half-truth go, because trying to explain all the circumstances that led to Batman coming to her rescue would be too complicated to explain. And here is Lois putting the kryptonite spear into a temporary hiding place where it can be retrieved later, instead of taking it with her and trying to walk around Gotham with it and possibly get it stolen by who knows what kind of people living in Gotham. Based on what Lois knows of what is happening now, the spear is best left somewhere it can't be found without knowing where it is, and she can later tell Clark and Batman where she put it so they can retrieve it after this has all blown over. The hour that Luthor gave to Superman has closed according to his egg timer, and Superman arrives to him at the scout ship with his powers recharged. Luthor greets him with the same
Looks like I win
attitude from before as he sees Superman without any evidence of Batman's death, and gleefully answers the phone expecting Knizev to answer.
Hello? Break the bad news.
But when Batman answers instead,
I'd rather do the breaking in person.
Superman tells him he has lost.
You've lost.
I don't know how to lose.
You'll learn.
And at this point where Luthor is revealed to be a sore loser, I think we have reached the point where I need to say that in reaching this point, Jesse Eisenberg's performance could have been altered so that if he is acting like this, his appearance could or should have also made to look like a reflection of it. Because he has spent most of the film looking like the younger teenage version of Luthor from Mark Waid's Superman Birthright, the evolution of the character in the movie has not been seen or felt through the performance alone, and if he looked like the older Luthor, aka the early to mid 30s version, and was bald, then moments like this would carry more weight than what they end up with. He is shown later with a shaved up head, but instead of him becoming bald via haircut at the last minute, imagine if he had been at the Senate hearing, on the very outer rim of the blast zone, outside of the courtroom, and was injured there, enough that treating his wounds would have required his hair getting cut out. With his ego, Luthor
Looks
would
like
not
I
have
win.
blamed himself for getting hurt by his own plan, and his apparent madness shown after the Capitol bombing in Hating Superman could have been seen visually with more commitment than what it ends up being without it. Anyway, the reanimation of General Zod's body is about to be ready to be reborn as the energy is gathered, and Luthor introduces his creation to Superman as
Ancient Kryptonian deformity. Obeys only me! Blood of my blood. Born to destroy you. Your doomsday.
and compared to a cave troll from The Lord of the Rings, this thing is in a better shape than that fat ass, and I am not going to call it a Doomsday. Or technically it is Doomsday in playing the role of the comic book Doomsday in the movie, but there are several sources in the DCEU lore that refer to an original Doomsday having existed back when Darkseid was still Uxas, meaning that what Luthor has created is more of a Doomsday clone. He copied Doomsday, just like he had those jail member logos copied in his secret files. And the Doomsday clone's first action is to attack its creator, forcing Superman to save Luthor.
No man in the sky intervened when I was a boy to deliver me from daddy's fists and abominations.
Yep, the irony is not lost on me. The Doomsday clone responds to Superman's interference and takes their fight outside the memorial monument, with all the members of the press outside, save this news chopper, having seemingly vanished. Landing at the memorial monument, the Doomsday clone shows some bits of intelligence in recognizing the statue of Superman before turning to Superman and beginning to beat him with the pieces of the monument. I say some bits of intelligence, as some people have theorized that this Doomsday clone might still retain some bits of General Zod's memories, and his feral behavior might be coming from seeing what he has been turned into and how Superman is treated by the humans from the creature's point of view. After throwing Superman to one direction, the Doomsday clone then jumps to the other direction and lands on the roof of the LexCorp building. Between the creature's actions, we are shown with the same real-time transitioning as Secretary Swanwick is responding to it with the military intervention with the President of the United States following, and the GCPD is greeted by Ma Kent as the Batplane flies away. And then there is the product placement scene of Diana having boarded a Turkish Airlines plane to leave the country and sees the Doomsday clone on the news. Military Apache helicopters open fire on the Doomsday clone in trying to neutralize it, but the creature is shown instead absorbing the energy and shoots it back. The energy wave destroys the Apaches and the news choppers, which Batman sees as he flies the Batplane into Metropolis. Diana has also seen what the Doomsday clone has done from the news, and this prompts her to check out of her flight. As the creature roars in the middle of the destruction it has caused, Superman flies from under it and begins to push it up in the air towards the space. Seeing as Superman is taking the Doomsday clone to a casualty-free zone, this unnamed general suggests shooting a nuke at both of them, which General Swanwick protests to, but the president allows to happen. And here is a random picture I took while writing the script of my pet rabbit watching this scene. His name is Lothar. The nuke reaches both Superman and the creature in the high stratosphere, and its aftermath is seen from the below by Batman in the Batplane, and Perry with the Daily Planet staff. Lois comes out after having hidden the kryptonite spear to see the Doomsday clone falling from the sky down to Stryker's Island, which is in the comic supposed to be like the real life Rikers Island, holding a prison with a number of Superman's enemies, but the movie claims that it is uninhabited. Meanwhile, Superman has not made a re-entry just yet, and while Swanwick is shown as the only one acknowledging Superman in the war room, the others in it notice that the Doomsday clone is still alive. Alive, and going through a metamorphosis in gaining the outgrown bone structures that the comic book Doomsday has. Except unlike the comic book Doomsday, however, they are not as big and intimidating. And Superman is shown floating in the orbit, withered from the nuke. Just like in The Dark Knight Returns after getting hit by a nuke there too. After Swanwick has concluded to the president that their attacks have been making the Doomsday clone more powerful, Batman is shown doing a flyby to observe the creature and catches its interest by getting fired at by its released energy beams. In contact with Alfred, Batman reports that he recognizes the Doomsday clone as a Kryptonian that can be only killed with kryptonite weapons at this point, which he says that he still has one left in those kryptonite gas grenades. And then Batman theorizes that the kryptonite spear should be able to kill the Doomsday clone if it can be used to penetrate the skin and reach vital organs. I should also acknowledge that the Doomsday clone is not a human being that can be left alive for the police to take in, like Cesar Santos and Anatoly Knizev's mercenaries were. The more rational than before person that Batman is now recognizes this creature as an unstoppable feral killing machine that has to be neutralized in order to avoid future casualties, just like SCP-682 or SCP-096.
There's nothing human about that thing.
And the reason why Batman leads it back to Gotham and the spear is because, as it was explained in the Win Perfect's original 3-part review series, the Doomsday clone is not going to stay put and wait for Batman to come back. As soon as Batman would have gotten away from it, the Doomsday clone would have focused its attention on something else and gone to kill the people it would have eventually found in going forward. So, Batman makes sure that the creature's focus is on him alone before beginning to lead it back to the abandoned GCPD building while Superman in the orbit floats into sunlight and the phone is fully charged again. Batman manages to get the Doomsday clone close enough to the old GCPD building before the Batplane is shot down by the creature's energy beams, and he is now alone at the mercy of the Keter-class entity.
Oh, shit.
He braces for the incoming attack. Remember when I said that Wonder Woman's appearance would have carried much more weight if we didn't know that she was going to be in the movie? I know that Patty Jenkins' movie was in production when this movie came out, but still, this moment could have had a much bigger impact if we didn't know that she was going to be in it. Or actually, let us know that a Wonder Woman movie was coming out in the following year, but don't leak out that she is going to be in this film! That could have worked too. Also, thanks a lot, Trailer 2, for spoiling this scene 4 months before the premiere! Wonder Woman coming to save Batman has even less impact now than when we knew that she would be in the film. But Chunky XL's soundtrack does cover for it a little. And welcome back, Superman. Thanks for buying everyone time to regroup by pushing the Keter aside for a few seconds. And what was in that place? Oh, it was an electric plant. That explains it. And a roar from the middle of it all causes Lois to run away, right back into the abandoned GCPD building.
Why did you bring him back to the city?
The port is abandoned. There's a weapon here that can kill it.
And that is one more explanation why Batman led the Doomsday clone here from Strikers. And I already explained why throwing the spear into the water was originally a smart move. But I can agree that Lois diving into the water to get it back on her own is a stupid idea. The smart decision would have been to call out to Clark, who she just saw flying above her, or go tell Batman and Wonder Woman near her where she hid the spear. She knows that they are going to need it, so why go alone?
Did you Find the spear.
I've been a little busy.
Superman's hearing must have heard Batman's exchange with Wonder Woman about why the Doomsday Clone was led here. But seeing as Batman just jumped out of the Batplane's wreckage, how could he have gotten to the spear yet? Wonder Woman observes the creature's properties as it keeps getting stronger, and Superman shares what Luthor told him about the Keter class entity.
This thing is from another world. My world.
You've killed things from other worlds before.
She with you?
I thought she was with you.
Okay, one more time. The "is she with you? I thought she was with you" exchange that went over so many of our heads. Thanks again, trailer 2! Superman's confusion is understandable, as this is his first time meeting her. But Batman's confusion needs some more explanation, as he has already made contact with Wonder Woman more than once and emailed her between parts 3 and 4. However, when we look back to the first time Bruce saw Wonder Woman's picture from 1917 and then emailed asking who she is, Batman obviously saw her as someone like Superman, and that is why he said,
I thought she was with you.
okay, 3 Zavados per video should be enough. Any more and they start to get annoying. Now, let's enjoy this shot of the DC Trinity standing together ready to fight the Doomsday Clone, who should have metamorphosed into looking more like the comic book Doomsday in this sequence, instead of looking exactly the same as when it started to chase Batman, who should not have survived this energy fallout just by hiding under there. Hell, Beast Boy died in Superboy's arms when Metropolis blew up in Injustice, and Batman is Barbatos protecting Batman so he can become his perfect wagon in the future? Well, he sure is not protecting Lois, who gets trapped underwater because of Fallout, and again, this is why she should have gone to tell the others where the spear was. Wonder Woman jumps at the Doomsday Clone and engages a 2-on-1 battle against it with Superman while Batman observes from the sidelines. He must feel really stupid about how he thought this was going to go down. He must feel like Yamcha watching the other Z-Warriors fighting Dr. Gero and Android 19 while knowing how weak he is in comparison. Lois is trapped underwater while Superman attacks the Doomsday Clone with his heat vision colliding with the creature's energy beams, until the Keter class entity pushes him away, and then his super hearing catches the sound of Lois beating her hand against the debris. And without pulling any more JoJo references, yes, he should be able to hear her in the area they are both in. Anatoly Knaisev was holding Markent further away from him earlier in a separate state, and he wasn't able to locate her because of that. But Lois is literally on the same block with him along with Batman, Wonder Woman, and the Doomsday Clone, so Clark should have a focused location on everyone in his close proximity. While Wonder Woman and Batman keep the Doomsday Clone busy, Clark lifts the debris and pulls Lois out of the water. She coughs out all the non-visible water in her lungs without any CPR, and after acknowledging that she is okay, Clark dives in to get the spear. Meanwhile, the Doomsday Clone turns its attention to chasing Batman, who flees like Yajirobe after he cut off Vegeta's tail when in Ozaru form, while paying a homage to this panel from The Dark Knight Returns. Without Wonder Woman helping him for some reason, Batman throws out more gas grenades and makes a disappearing act. While that happened, Clark has managed to dig up the spear from the debris, but the kryptonite has taken away his strength to get out of the water, so Lois has to do that for him and throw the spear further away so that Clark can recover while the Doomsday Clone has now gone back to fighting Wonder Woman. This reaction, by the way, was improvised by Gal Gadot, after which Zack Snyder wanted to ask her why she did it, after having already decided to keep it in the film, according to this interview from LA Times. And in the fight, she delivers the first actual attack doing any damage by using her sword to cut off the creature's right forearm, and it immediately begins to metamorphose into a stake. On Clark and Lois's end, Clark has recovered his focus to see what the situation on the battlefield is, and sees his opening in how to go forward. He echoes his father's words from part 3 to Lois.
When I met your mother, she gave me faith that there's good in this world. She was my world. This is my world. You are my world.
And flies towards the Doomsday Clone while grabbing the spear from the ground. The kryptonite's radiation is making it harder for Clark to fly towards the creature, so Wonder Woman and Batman do their parts in making the job easier for him. Wonder Woman uses her lasso to restrain the Doomsday Clone into a fixed location, and this is why she couldn't use a spear instead. And Batman uses his last kryptonite gas grenade to stun the creature. This is a combined effort to keep it immobile so Superman won't miss in flying the spear right into the Keter-class entity's chest. But then, like a wounded tiger, the creature gets enough adrenaline to respond and impale its newly formed stake arm right into Superman's chest in retaliation. And then, knowing that it will save lives, Superman uses the last of his strength to push the spear deeper into the Doomsday Clone's torso, while also pulling the stake on his chest deeper into his. Both fall dead on the ground, and Dan Jurgens earns his special thanks credits as Lois, Batman, and Wonder Woman react to the death of Superman at the hands of the Doomsday Clone. Batman especially shows respect to the deceased, who he had been planning to kill or die trying to kill the previous day, as he carefully moves Superman's body down for Wonder Woman to receive and give to Lois so she can grieve. You really need to be a massive jerk if you choose to hate this scene. Even if you know death scenes from previous movies that have done something like this better.
No! Shion! Who else will I have ice cream with?
I would have followed you, my brother. My captain. My king. ザコが邪魔しよって。
死んじゃダメ。
似合わなかったら、私は意味のない命を流れただけ。ありがとう。
Jack, listen to me. Jim is not solely coordinating this attack. Talking on a sat phone. He's coordinating with someone on the outside. They were giving him real-time intel. If we take Jim down, the president may still be in danger. You're the only one I know who can do this, Jack. Find out who Jim was working with.
に動いていた。動かずにはいられなかった。畜生、俺の方が生き残っちまった。畜生、なんてこったと言ったのに、その突っ張った性格のために。My queen! My wife. My love.
You two go find somewhere to take shelter far from here. I have to stop Boo, and I'm doing it alone.
We'll fight with you. If you do this alone, you're gonna end up getting yourself killed, Dad.
Trunks, from the time you were a little baby, I've never once hugged you because I always wanted to make you a tougher man. I'll hug you now.
Wait, Dad, what are you doing?
Take care, Trunks, all right?
쟤좀 데리고 빨리. 빨리 가야 돼요. 윤선. 우리 딸 이름 선원이야. 알았지? 좋았어.
If only you'd finished me off a little bit sooner.
No, I should have listened. I should have listened to my dad.
Goku, what's wrong? No matter how you slice it, I figure there's really only one way we can save the Earth at this point. Goodbye, my friends. You've made me very proud, Gohan. I'm going to need you to take care of your mother for me. And you're going to have to tell her I didn't have a choice. Goodbye, Gohan.
Guess this is it. Care of the future. A2.
Are you?
Nights.
No!
If I don't, we're all lost.
Googie not let his friend die. Tom has many friends. Googie has no friends.
Gurgi, no! Don't jump! No!
I am not going to be a jerk and hate those scenes in exchange. And another thing I want to point out is that when compared to the mainstream comic book Superman, who has existed since 1986, the death and return of Superman happened between 1992 and 1993, after which that version of Superman existed in the comics until he was replaced by the new 52 Superman in 2011, and then came back after that Superman died in 2016 when the DC Rebirth happened. Meaning that the comic book Superman died and came back relatively early into his existence. And at the time of the writing of this script, he still exists, as written by Brian Michael Bendis, up until December 2020. The death and return of the DCEU Superman might as well have happened this early, because his comic book counterpart also died this early, and went to live a long life after it happened. I remember reading multiple comics from the early 2000s where Superman looked back on his own death and resurrection as an example of how far he is willing to go in order to protect the humanity, so this is accurate to the source material. And this next scene of the SCP Mobile Task Force infiltrating the scout ship to find Luthor communicating with Steppenwolf was originally released online the following week after the movie premiered. This was Zack Snyder's own attempt at having an after-credits scene, but I think we can all agree that it was a stupid idea. The Foundation soldiers take Luthor to proper authorities and give him that haircut I mentioned earlier. It seems as an idiotic last-minute reminder, as I said it would be, because it would have been better if he had gotten bald earlier in the movie, in a way that would make him permanently bald. His hair can grow back from this! Then the movie jumps over to the following day, in the printing rooms of the Daily Planet, with Perry White overseeing the headline reporting about Superman's death and Luthor's arrest for being connected to the Capitol bombing, creating the Doomsday Clone, and everything else Lois has been collecting evidence of. And Clark Kent also gets an obituary claiming he died when reporting what was happening in Gotham. I'll get to this in a bit. And while I did appreciate how Batman and Wonder Woman showed respect to Superman's passing, this large and wide day of mourning for Superman does come across a little weird when half of the humanity was openly acting like the worst people hating this movie. When I say it out loud like that, the first thing that comes to mind is how everyone usually acts after a celebrity dies, and this movie did take place before the internet cancel culture started to talk shit about everyone the day after they died. Meaning that this movie is from before most of the people online started to be proud of being jerks. And now that we are getting into Clark Kent's funeral, this is my copy of Action Comics issue 692, written by Roger Stern, which dealt with the aftermath of Superman's return from the dead and how Clark Kent's absence was explained. To make a long story short, they used a shapeshifter who was not Martian Manhunter to pose as Clark Kent, who Superman rescued from a caved-in underground shelter, and they have a picture of both be taken with Lois to have photographic evidence that they are separate people. But as we see Clark's funeral in his mother's house, We see a lot of people attending, including Perry White, Jenny Jurvik, Pete Ross, Lana Lang, and Father Daniel Leone, that priest Clark went to see in Man of Steel after Zod revealed his existence to the world, that this is an open casket funeral, meaning that they get to see Clark's dead body in an open casket knowing that he is dead and not missing in action. And this posthumous proposal for marriage that Clark does to Lois from beyond the grave, it's shot with almost no background noise or musical score, which is a nice touch to it. I assume that Clark mailed that ring to the farm after he came down from the mountain in part 3. And the silent moment is immediately followed by bagpipes playing Amazing Grace, as we see the other funeral held for Superman by the US military, with General Swanwick receiving the folded US flag like he is Superman's next of kin. Father Daniel delivers a eulogy on Clark's grave after he has been laid to rest, and the mourning Ma Kent tries to put up a strong front in being more worried about paying for her son's funeral, until Pete Ross tells her that an anonymous donor has paid for the expenses. The donor is revealed to us to have been Bruce, who along with Diana watches from a distance as Lois picks up dirt and drops it into Clark's little open grave. After acknowledging the other funeral, Bruce says out loud how he knows he failed on his promise to keep the mother and son from being separated, and that he is going to dedicate the rest of his life on honoring Clark's memory. Starting with finding the others Luthor had files on, and planning to make them Superman's replacements. Diana waits on not believing on those people being so eager to be found, using her own past experiences as her reasoning on why she doesn't believe in how people can stand together as Bruce wants. Bruce waits back on his newfound optimism coming from how Clark saved him from himself by saying the iconic line,
Man is still good. We fight, we kill, we betray one another, but we can rebuild. We can do better, Will. We have to.
which counters Bruce's opening monologue from the beginning of the movie, and which I can interpret as shit happens, but that doesn't mean we have to stay laying in it. We get up, remember how we got there, and try to avoid it in the future. And I already gave my piece on how I felt for the humanity's overall response to Superman's death, as shown by these extras. This could come across more believably if some of those people Clark was shown saving from the flooded town were here, or those people from the New Orleans where he rescued that girl from that burning building were shown to be in this crowd. My point is that a majority of these people are hypocrites. Yes, humanity is Superman's monument. I see where they were going with this. Next, Diana is shown asking why Bruce believes the others from Luthor's files are needed to take Superman's place. And I'm willing to bet that Chris Terrio let J.J. Abrams steal Bruce's response into Star Wars Episode 9.
Just a feeling.
Why? A feeling. How do you know?
A feeling.
That feeling is explained with a flashback that could have been shown earlier after the MTF unit had taken Luthor into custody, shaved his hair, and dressed him up as a D-class. By showing Batman having come to brand Luthor like he had branded Cesar Santos earlier. And my understanding is that after having learned that Luthor had been playing him like a damn fiddle, Batman was there to give Luthor some of his own medicine, but Luthor managed to talk himself out of it by indirectly revealing that, like with those he had files on, he knows Batman's secret identity, and thanks to the facade he has been putting on throughout this entire movie, he has been declared unfit to stand trial for his crimes. Batman responds to this by revealing that he brought his Bat brand only for intimidation purposes, and that he has arranged for the site director to move Luthor from being a D-class to an inmate in Arkham Asylum, where Batman has people ready to keep an eye on him. Luthor still ends up getting the final word by revealing that out there in the darkness of space, there is something worse than his Doomsday clone that has learned of Superman's death. And just as we saw Luthor communicating with Steppenwolf, this is why this flashback could have been better placed after his arrest, Not here after the funeral.
He's hungry, found us, and he's coming!
Switch those ding 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 dings to ping ping pings, and this would have been a more acceptable final scene of this character. Even casual DC fans would have recognized them as mother box noises. The flashback ends and returns us back to the present as Bruce leaves the funeral, and the movie has reached the 2-hour, 35-minute, and 30-second timestamp. That Egg Timer's movie time hour is over, and we see Lois dropping that dirt onto Clark's still open grave. There was absolutely nothing, "This movie is a masterpiece," worthy about that line of dialogue declaring that Superman had only 1 hour left because the movie is not over yet. Well, Lois drops the dirt onto the coffin and leaves to allow the grave diggers to fill the open grave. The final shot of the film is of that dirt laying down there on Clark's coffin. Then it is shown moving upward for a fraction of a second, and the movie is over. There are contradicting rumors about the floating dirt being something that Zack Snyder wanted to or didn't want to leave to the film. While some people say that Warner Bros. Studio executives demanded it to be there to leave the movie on a hopeful note that Superman will be coming back from the dead, for those people who never read Death and Return of Superman. Otherwise, that was the entire movie covered and summarized in 3 videos. I will still be making a part 5 going over some things I either glossed over or didn't pay enough attention to. This can also extend to responding to comments if this video gets any, seeing how I am not that popular as a YouTuber. It should be before Zack Snyder's Justice League comes out on March 18th. At least that's where I'm aiming at. I have not exactly written the script for it yet. I just got parts 1 through 4 written through and then started turning them into videos. But as we are now at the end, all I have left to say is like, comment, share and subscribe, and may your heart be your guiding key.